I used to know Bryce Dallas Howard from running away from a T-Rex on high heels. That was hilarious. I thought she was an okay actress in an okay movie franchise with more misses than hits. Now I know her as a great director in a great franchise with more hits than misses. She has directed a few episodes across multiple Star Wars shows, and I actually can't recall one of them that was bad or even mediocre. Usually they are quite good. So maybe it's time to fully commit stepping into her father's footsteps and be a director full time. That would be happy days in it. This is the review of Champions, and I'm your host, Grandmaster. With me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Shakar has to offer. Let me introduce them to you. First up, the man himself, the one who comes for you, for everyone, the voice, Mr. Lord Deathman. How are you?
I am stellar today, thank you.
We have the original, Mr. Taylor First. How are you?
I am excellent. Oh, what do they say on Skeleton Crew? Is it Whizzer? I'm Whizzer.
I don't know, actually, but and last but not least, Merv, how are you, man?
I'm Whizzer.
Oh, well. Okay. Today we're going to talk about episode 6 of Skeleton Crew, but before we do that, I want to ask you all to help us out. Like and share this video, subscribe to our channel, and join our forum on Freeforms.net. Just click on the link in the description and you can set up your account, join the conversation, and if you're willing, you can join us on our shows. This is your final warning. We're going to discuss the content of this show in depth. So if you haven't seen this week's episode yet, do that first and then come back to this video. While Jod, one of his many names, gets abducted by pirates, abducted, is that the right word? I don't know. The kids, they are having their own problems. And you know what, Merv? Did you like this week's episode? Short thoughts.
I loved it. I thought it was great. It very well could have been my favorite episode of this season so far. I thought the highlight on the children's character development and interconnecting relationships was fantastic. I liked the little bit of action we got, and Jod's a pretty smooth talker. I really like the pirate scenes as well. I don't think this didn't feel like a short episode to me. I said that on the board, but this was technically a short episode, but it felt like a full length one to me. Okay. So very good episode.
Taylor, do you concur?
I do concur. It's a really good episode. A lot of good things in this ep that we will get into, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely. Lord Deathman, you joined the forum in the same way, or you didn't like it?
I enjoyed this episode, and I'll confess to the audience at home that I have been sort of binging these. So I probably watched about 3 of these episodes in a row. So it's starting to blur where one started and the other one end. But the most recent one, I like the kind of slowdown to kind of focus on some character development, particularly for KB. And the show is really delightful, and I thought that this episode is great. And I agree with Merv. I think this is probably my favorite episode of the season, as I think we have maybe 1 or 2 more to go in the series, assuming it's an 8 to 10 episode series. So I like the way that this kind of this episode feels like it's kind of going to help us set up the remaining episodes of the season. And it was nice to kind of take this break, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. Taylor, yeah, it was a shorter episode, and yeah, it slowed down. But I think when it comes to character, it had one of the best parts of the show so far. I actually can't fault this episode at all. Can you?
No, I really can. I think it was a really great episode. I like that the kids are on their own now, and had to get through some hurdles, some bumps of their own, in their own relationship. They split up for a while because they couldn't agree on things. Jude Law, of course, was taken by the pirates, and he has now convinced them to let him lead them to Aden. Of course, we'll see where that goes. But the best part of this episode for me, I mean, just when you thought KB couldn't get any cooler, She has a battery compartment in the back of her head, and she can make field expedient spare parts out of junk and sand. All right, if that's not the coolest girl ever, who is? All right.
Yeah, she went all full MacGyver.
She did. She went full MacGyver on us. But yeah, when they just reached into the back of her head and pulled stuff out, I was like, this is so cool. But no, it was just a really good episode. All the relationship stuff was great. All the friends who had been friends before the show started, their relationships built and developed, and friends who hadn't known each other until this show started grew. Their relationships grew, like KB and Neil,
Win.
and KB and Win. Is that the kid's name with the curly
Win.
hair? Win. Yeah, Win. They definitely grew in relationship. Win is, I'm glad that Win recognizes his flaws of really poor judgment on who's good guy and who's a bad guy, because those junk crabs or trash crabs led them right into a trap to feed to their giant king there. The one real action scene in the episode, though, was really an excellent action scene when that trash compactor, whatever it was eating the ship, and they were trying to get away, and they were on, some of them were on top of the ship, swinging around, and then of course they had to push the button that you're never supposed to push. That I guess there's an actual outer hull shell on the ship that allowed them to escape. Creative, and like I said, a really good action scene and really well executed. So I really have no complaints about this episode. I can't wait to see if they're able to get to Ad-Adin and stop the pirates in time here.
Well, both groups have the coordinates, so now it's a race. Lord Deathman, I actually also like that action scene, and I didn't see it online, and justifiably so. Nobody has complained, oh, all of a sudden those kids can pilot and fight and everything. Mary Sue's, Gary Stu's, whatever. I think it was all earned during the show. I mean, they actually did everything already what they were doing in the end, and then Fern actually made a decision as a captain. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Did you?
Absolutely. And I think the reason we're not getting, how come this person knows how to do this automatically? Because it's not like cool to pick on kids, right? So, I mean, surely there are people in the fandom who would, but I think by and large, we try to ignore children as targets in these types of critiques. So I wasn't even thinking about that. And I will say that I usually do my viewing for the podcast, but on my own, and I try to take notes and decide what points I'm going to be talking about. But I've got a small army of nieces and nephews that I'm kind of watching this with, and it's kind of nice to see young people enjoying this, like what it's like to have folks watching at their own demographic, but still being able to enjoy it as an old timer myself. So certainly digging that part of the experience. And I think this show, I haven't really heard anything negative about the show. Not that I've gone looking for it or that I actually care, but this show seems to be non-controversial amongst Star Wars fans, which I'm grateful that that's how we kind of ended the year for Disney and Star Wars, rather than with another acolyte style debacle. But yeah, the cybernetic implants malfunctioning and revealing her past accidents and limitations with KB, rock star of the show. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the sequences with her in it. The repair sequences, and how it kind of strengthens the friendship there. So the trash crabs are a little disturbing to me. Crabs in general, just the image, the words for here's a secret tip about Lord Deathman: phobia of crustaceans. So
Okay. Okay. Don't
but
tell
in
Bob.
it yeah, but Jude Law is really a jewel on this show too. I think he's doing some really great acting. He's really persuasive and smooth and suave and debonair. And I'm like, does this guy know how to be rough around the edges? I did see another movie with him in it where he tried to be rough around the edges, but wasn't quite successful. But all in all, without yakking a bit too much, I really do enjoy the show. I could even see myself rewatching it at some point. It really is a delight, and I just like the fact that there's not a whole lot of lore to think about. This is really feels kind of self-contained as a series, but there are little Easter eggs that connect it to the universe. And the story's really, simple to follow as far as the pirates. And I am rooting for the kids.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, we're rooting for the kids. They're the good guys, right?
Yeah.
Well, don't ask Wim. He's a poor judge. Merv, do you have any criticism of episode 6 or?
I can't really think of any criticisms. I had a mild one while it was happening, where I kind of wish there was at least a little bit more of a Fern and Neil bonding moment when they're scaling the junk or the cliff or whatever. I can't remember what they were scaling, but then they kind of had a moment later on in the ship that kind of worked for me as well. Just because I felt like KB and Finn had a lot of bonding and a lot of, just conversation that mattered between the two of them. And I wanted that also for Fern and Neil. But again, they had their own like little thing going on that kind of worked out anyway. So I'm not really even going to call that a criticism. I think this episode was really strong, start to finish.
Yeah. Okay. I really particularly like the dynamic between Fern and KB, that they both realized they were not, how to say, they were doing each other wrong in their friendship. KB by not speaking out if she can't do something, and Fern by thinking KB can do everything, and not knowing not realizing she is disabled in a way. I actually really enjoyed the dynamic in this episode.
Yeah, it was almost like I agree 100%. And it was almost like I don't want to say like a reverse like prejudice or anything, but she saw KB as so efficient or so capable of anything that she didn't see any flaws where there is one. You know what I mean? So I think it's just the KB's whole situation comes with some strengths and some weaknesses, and I think Fern just never really saw or acknowledged the weaknesses that KB faced. And I think that was a big, obviously bonding moment for them. And it was important. You could tell it was important for KB as well, because she thought her friendship was going to be over. Like as soon as she realizes I'm not perfect, she's just going to, leave me for better friends. And it's a very childhood thing to think, but it's like, that getting that acknowledgement of like, I'm still your friend regardless. Like that's a big moment for kids, So I love that moment for them. I love all of the beginning of the episode where the 4 kids kind of fall apart, for lack of a better word, and split off into pairs. But then like by the end they come back together, and it's just they both kind of achieve their little side quest, some better than others. And there's that, like, hey, we were all pretty stupid. Let's just work together, and now we'll get out of here. Yeah. Some things I did like outside of the obvious, so much character growth for all 4 kids in this episode, which is the big thing that I took away from it. Jod was a super smooth talker, and obviously that's his biggest strength. He might have force powers, he may be one heck of a pirate, but his ability to talk to people, I feel like Brutus should know better than to let him speak. The fact that Brutus hasn't cut his tongue out yet is a flaw for Brutus. He should know better. I feel like he seems savvy enough, but I'm really curious to see where that goes. I thought the little trash crabs were adorable. I loved their little chatter of like follow and help and that sort of thing. And of course it was a big, trap or whatever to the giant monstrosity of a trash crab that was not as cute. But I thought the little ones were very cute. And then the big action sequence with the trash compactor, I thought was just fantastic. It actually gave me a lot of like Toy Story 3 vibes for some reason. Maybe it's just the trash compactor element. But I loved that whole thing. I love that they previewed this, the kids' abilities to do this by having Jod teach them basically on the fly a few episodes ago how to, like, you piloting the ship just because you're in the chair, you know what I mean? And you're going to go over here and you fire the guns. It's just like a toy gun, you know? So he kind of like crash coursed them on this already. And this is like, we see that, okay, they can figure this out on their own. They don't need Jod. It might take them a little bit to get their rhythm, but they can manage. And I loved, I don't know if I've ever seen this before, the whole hull demolition thing where it was like I couldn't really tell. I might have to rewatch it, but it was like the outer layer of the ship shed like almost like a snake skin. Like it was really cool looking, and I really want to look at it again and see like what did they do here, because I've never seen that in sci-fi where like the outer layer of a ship can shed out like that. Like, oh, you're in trouble. Okay, well, and then you got a slightly smaller ship. It's almost like the Batmobile like unicycle thing, where oh crap, the Batmobile's screwed, but I still got most of it, and it still works. And I thought that was a really cool moment. It adds another ship to the whole Star Wars gallery that I want to see again. So yeah,
I saw it before in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
I can't remember, but whenever I do a rewatch, I'll keep an eye out for it.
The whole Ravager ship explodes, but they take a compartment out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, anyway, a question just popped in my head before we go to a rating. I just want to ask you, Merv, first, and then Taylor and Lord Devman. Writing of the show. I think it's actually really good. On Star Wars, like good. I'm not saying it's Andor level, but it's up top tier for Star Wars. Do you agree?
I mean, I think it's fantastic, like just the way it's written, and it's written in a very different way than Andor, and it's just they're both Star Wars, but they're very different everything else. You know what I mean? Just it's the umbrella universe of the same thing, but they're very different everything else. And I think this is a very well written like kids show, for lack of a better word. Whereas Andor is much more. It's just a different vibe. In the same way that. Avatar: The Last Airbender is well written, and so is Breaking Bad, but they're not exactly the same thing. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else, but
yeah, well, I understand you. Taylor, your thoughts on that?
I agree completely. The writing is excellent on this show. It's really well done. The writing of the story as well as the writing of all the dialogue is very good. And if I could just go back 1 second. I agree that all of their abilities are earned because they've all been set up in some way, shape, or form earlier. But even so, when they're first flying the ship in this episode, they did have some issues controlling it and steering it, just like the first time a kid drives a car. And in the Star Wars universe, it seems like flying a spaceship is kind of like driving a car in our universe. I mean, everybody does it. It's not something that you require to go to school for and get certified and have a license and all this stuff to fly a ship, because every adult flies spaceships in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, it's just pushing buttons, right? And now I move to our resident writer, Lord Devman. Do you agree about the writing?
I wholeheartedly agree about the writing. It's very strong, and people may not know, but it is fairly challenging to write compelling material for a younger audience, and calibrating that the right way so that you don't lose interest with that audience or don't confuse them or lose them. The writing here is excellent, and I think I usually say that if the dialogue and the writing in the story is so compelling that I end up looking up who actually did it, that means they were doing a good job, right? Like if I don't need to know who wrote this, then it's like, okay, if that was all right. But John Watts and Christopher Ford, I think, were the primary showrunners and writers for this, and they're doing an excellent job across the board. The story structure, as well as the dialogue, the way they're writing it, I feel like it reaches me at a couple of different levels. You can think about it the way it would appeal to a young person watching the show, and there's also like the double layer of how it could resonate for someone who's my age, an adult, as I often claim to be. But that being said, I also got the sense of the way they were writing it, and I don't know if I'm gonna have to wait till this like they release like behind the scenes stuff, but it does feel like they may have tackled this the way you would kind of the kind of script approach that you would use for an animated project. It feels like some of that story structure or DNA was how they used this. It feels like they might have been working against previs versions of the story or really detailed storyboards to actually come up with the structure of the story and write dialogue to it. I'd be really curious to know if that was the approach they took. But yeah, this is the kind of show where you feel like, why haven't they done this already in Star Wars, right? Like this seems like it was just like an obvious win for this franchise to do a live action show with this particular kind of style for this audience. So it's a little bit of a head scratcher that I don't think, at least that I'm aware of, and I know there are animated shows that kind of match this tone, but it is weird that we haven't seen like a live action take on this.
Yeah. Okay, let's just move on to a rating for episode 6. And I'm going to start with you, Lord Deafman. What's your number?
I really enjoyed this episode. I want to give it a 9. And I know that seems like really high, but honestly, I couldn't find anything wrong with this episode from a critical perspective. And I guess maybe it's only losing 1 point for the crabs.
Okay. Merv, can I have your number?
Yeah, I'm going to give it an extra point for the crabs. And I'm going to go 10 out of 10. I couldn't find anything wrong with this episode. This really endeared me to this whole, season as a whole. I think it was much needed character development for the kids that I was really looking forward to, and I hope to see more of it.
Taylor?
I'll give it a 9 out of 10 because it needs more crabs.
Oh, crap. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 also. I really, 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 really adore this show, and I don't want to get my hopes up because so many times we have seen that they screw it up in the end. But come on, stick the landing, and I go 10 out of 10. No worries. Anyway, that will conclude this week's review of Champions for episode 6 of Skeleton Crew. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, you can help us out. Like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you really want more of us, you can join our forum at Sakar.freeform. So that, again, click on the link in the description. We would love it if you do that. Next week, we will discuss episode 7, of course. And you can also check out our review for What If Season 3 and the latest episode of the Star Trek Project. For now, I thank you all also on behalf of our champions and wish the Force to be with you always. Bye.